Before I ever wore a gold oak leaf, my last name had already assigned me a seat. In the Rains' dining room, everything smelled like lemon oil and ammonia. My father swore discipline lived in shine, not just in people. Over the table hung his shadow box, sun-faded ribbons under glass beside a brass plate etched with a ship I never set foot on. Dinner was supposed to be simple. Chicken pie cooling on the counter. Until Caleb crashed in, jersey streaked with grass and sweat, grin bright enough to tip the room toward him. Mom, Elise, slid a plate under his elbows and kissed his temple like the scoreboard had canonized him. Dad, Chief Graham Rains, retired, popped 2 bottles and clinked them together, pride loud as a toast. That's how it's done, he said then like a family creed. When muscle fails, rank speaks. The line floated there, older than both of us. I cleared my throat. An envelope rested by the salt, heavy with the state seal that leaves a dent in your thumb. Nothing dramatic, I said. Just a letter. Everything with you is a letter, Caleb shot back, leaning until his chair squealed. One day you'll be filing my paperwork, kid. He tapped his fork like a snare, keeping time. Dad smirked as if truth had been spoken. Mom laughed softly and swept a crumb into her palm. No one touched the envelope. Dad steered the table into sea stories. Storms, busted valves, victories you could count in bruises. Caleb leaned in, hungry for every detail. Mom cut pie and murmured, "Your sister's always so serious." The knife flashed, catching the brass plate with a glint that vanished before I could claim it. Voices rose on the porch. Caleb's friends. He sprang up, chair legs scraping. "Go on," Dad clapped his shoulder. "You earned it." The door banged. Laughter spilled outside. Silence sat down beside me. I stacked plates, let the sink fog my glasses and glanced at the envelope again. Inside, a scholarship. A way out. Proof that work mattered even when no one clapped. But in this house, importance was measured in touchdowns and stories that bled. When the kitchen dimmed to the stove clock's green blink, I opened the letter, learned it by heart and slid it back into its sleeve. The seal pressed flat under my thumb, neat as a dress-right dress fold. I didn't cry. I just stopped expecting to be seen. They mistook discipline for dullness. They had no idea how sharp it could be. Fort Hamilton's nights run on quiet. Concrete hums with HVAC, monitors glow behind half-closed blinds, corridor lights refuse to sleep. I stayed late because silence is the only ally that never asks for proof. My office window looked over the motor pool. Headlights blinked as shifts turned over, boots striking pavement like a metronome. A gold oak leaf sat on my shoulder. Major Military Intelligence, TS/SI, weighing more than any rifle I've carried. I scrolled through the week's training rosters, units sliding by, names tagged with billets and clearances. Then I saw it. Staff Sergeant Caleb Rains, Logistics Observer, temporary duty. My brother. For a beat the room bent, the fluorescent hum clipping like someone cut a wire. He wasn't supposed to cross into this airspace. The last time he'd mocked me, I was still in our parents' kitchen with an unopened envelope in my hand. Now my signature cued satellite tasking and air-gapped feeds. Yet he was coming anyway. I leaned back, spine meeting a chair jacket stiff from starch and years. I remembered the day I pinned Major. No champagne, no speeches, just a late box from my mother, cookies in plastic and a note that read, "Proud of you. Your brother's doing great too." Pride was a currency they only ever spent on him. The cursor blinked beside his name like an order waiting to be acknowledged. I closed the roster and exhaled once, slow and deliberate, the way they teach you on the range. Steady hands. Steady mind. The chill that settled after didn't belong to the AC. It was older than that. He would show up grinning, certain nothing had changed. He'd still be looking for the girl who cleared plates, not the officer who runs joint briefs. My phone lit. "Mom. He'll be at Fort Hamilton soon," she said like she was announcing a holiday guest. Then softer, shaped to fit her purpose, "Don't embarrass him." I almost laughed at the idea that his comfort still outranked my authority. "I won't," I said, level as a range call. She hung up before I could decide whether to remind her of my title. For a long moment the phone felt heavy in my palm, heartbeat slow and dense. In the hallway, Staff Sergeant Nyla Cortez walked past with a tablet. Her eyes flicked once toward me, curious, not unkind. She'd read the roster. She could see the collision forming on the horizon. Down the corridor, Colonel Harlan Vick stepped out of a briefing room. He didn't linger. Just enough of a glance to register and shelve. The best allies move quiet at first. I shut down the monitor, gathered my notes, and stepped out into air that smelled like wet asphalt and diesel. Stars were washed out by sodium lamps over the parade ground. My stride found the cadence it always finds. I wasn't 16 anymore. If he walked into my space now, he wouldn't find a sister to heckle. He'd find a major with command and clearance. They say generals have seen everything. That morning they watched my brother test me where he never should have stood. The as-if breathed cold through the vents, a hush that irons every sound flat. The Joint Command crest threw a hard shine above the main screen. 24 officers settled in with civilian analysts at the flanks, tablets lit. I badged in, the first slide waiting. A satellite capture framed in coordinates and UTC stamps. "Good morning," I said, not loud, just exact. "We'll start with infrastructure touchpoints and spoofed nodes mapped over the last 3 weeks." The laser steadied on the grid. A chair creaked fourth row. Caleb, out of uniform, lounged like the air owed him rent. A temporary observer badge hung where caveats for TS/SCI should have been. Even from the podium I could read the blank of it. In my ear, uninvited. "Don't embarrass him." Slide 2. A layered schematic in muted bands. "Traffic spikes here, here, and here," I continued. "Pattern aligns with internal pressure points and... Careful, sis. Don't let your paperwork get in the way of real soldiering." The words dropped into the room and vanished, like a coin swallowed by a deep well. Someone cleared a throat. I didn't give Caleb the dignity of a glance. I shifted the laser a hair's breadth and picked up mid-sentence, exactly where I'd left off. "Silence has a climate." Mine turned the air 1 degree colder. I let it sit for a beat, then glanced left. Staff Sergeant Nyla Cortez stood at the access console, tablet cradled, face unreadable. I gave a small nod. He tapped once. Professional, unhurried. The door sighed open. 2 MPs stepped in, posture squared, respect built into every stride. "Staff Sergeant Rains," one said evenly, "you're not cleared for this brief. Please come with us." Caleb didn't move at first. He smirked at the aisle, then at me, as if one more line might tilt the room back to his gravity. "Guess this isn't the cool kids table after all." He stood with a shrug meant to turn the moment into theater. For half a heartbeat I saw the boy who mistook volume for power, who learned our father's maxims like hymns. Then his shadow stretched across the carpet and slid out the door. The seal closed with a soft, final hush. "Continue, Major Rains," Colonel Vick said. I didn't realize I'd been holding a breath until it left me steady. "Copy." The word flipped a switch. Slide 3 filled the screen. Exposure windows mapped to mitigation routes. My cadence locked in. Traffic rerouted at 0221 and again at 0453. Interagency handoff initiates at Phase 4. Proposed patching is outlined below. Questions cut in on clean vectors. A lieutenant colonel asked for latency deltas. I gave the numbers without looking down. A civilian analyst flagged 2 anomalous pings. I sorted them against known decoys, then moved us forward. At the edge of my sightline, Cortez went back to work, thumbs moving. The chain had already started. Access logs flagged tailgating, CCTV pulls queued, timestamps to the second. We closed on recommendations. The crest above me threw back the projector's light. Vic's face offered nothing performative, which I'd learned meant unblinking attention. Pens stilled. Shoulders reset to the mission. The air felt clean again. No applause. Just clarity. I saved the deck, badged out, and felt the small bite of plastic slide past skin. By now, Caleb would be halfway down the corridor and the story he told about me would have to switch tenses. The report waiting on my desk wasn't busy work. It was the first page of my reckoning. If you've ever wondered how quiet winds stay with me. The chamber was bright in a way no as-if ever allows. Sun through high windows, banners held still, the flag and crest posted above a raised desk where 3 senior officers sat like a bench. Fort Hamilton called it a security review board. Everyone understood what it meant when protocol got tested. This is where the cut is made. Caleb slouched as if it were a casual interview instead of discipline. Uniform pressed, boots shined, eyes wearing the old, careless glint from high school hallways. He threw me a smirk like we were still playing the sibling game. "I was on the roster," he began, voice tilted toward charm. "Observer only. Logistics liaison. Nothing classified, nothing serious. The board listened like stone. They'd heard every version of just. My hand stayed on the envelope Cortez had given me last week. Tamper strip intact, chain of custody tight. When the chair nodded, I rose. Submitting into record, Incident Report IR 12-0347. The seal tore with a clean rip. I spread the access logs across the polished wood. Staff Sergeant Rain's badge is coded for outer corridors only. No clearance for the SCIF briefing room. A colonel leaned forward, eyes tracking the timestamps. Caleb's smirk slipped. Objection, he muttered as if the rules could be argued into kindness. I walked in with the group. No heck. Door was open. Correction, Cortez said, stepping up with her packet. She slid a printed still beneath the board's stare. CCTV, date and time stamped. Caleb tucked close behind a civilian analyst. No badge swipe of his own. Tailgating, she said. Just that. The quiet that followed weighed more than any raised voice. Daniel shifted his knee, bouncing under the table. I reached for the final sheet. A printout folded once. My voice stayed calm. Additionally, Staff Sergeant Mercer published this message on public social media 2 days after the incident. I read it aloud. Funny how some folks forget where they came from once rank goes to their head. The words floated unmistakable. The board looked at him, then at me. The air in the chamber thickened until even his breath seemed loud. His face flush creeping above the collar gave away more than any testimony. I was joking. He tried tone thinner. Now everyone jokes online. It wasn't. The chairman lifted a hand. Enough. Colonel Rohr leaned forward. Voice even decisive. In a SCIF protocol isn't family business. It's national security. This board sees Major Mercer acted precisely. The gavel's knock echoed like a closing door. Formal reprimand, reassignment. A career dented, not destroyed, but pride gutted in front of the very system he thought he could bend. For the first time since childhood, Daniel had no words left. Rohr turned to me, expression steady, measured. Good work, Major. It was simple acknowledgement, but it rang louder than any cheer I'd ever waited for at our family table. Briggs caught my eye across the chamber, her nod small but certain. The officers gathered their papers, chairs scraped back. Daniel stared at the table as though the wood might offer rescue, but there was none. For years Daniel thought he could bend rooms with his voice. Today it was silence that bent him. They once told me silence was weakness. Today silence signed my commendation. Mid-December light spilled into the assembly hall, catching banners and the brass crest above the Ds. The year-end commendation assembly was never meant to dazzle. It was meant to remind. Rows of uniforms filled the seats. Cameras hung back, flashes rare and quick. I waited outside the doors, uniform crisp gloves tucked at my belt. The hum of the building felt steady in my chest. Briggs stepped from the side corridor and held out a sealed sleeve. Inside was a redacted copy of the review board resolution. You did it by the book. That's how it holds, she said softly. I touched the edge of the envelope. It was heavier than any metal I had worn, recognition sealed not for spectacle but for permanence. The board convened inside. Colonel Rohr stood at the podium, his voice, firm words clipped for the record. Citation, he began. He described the SIF, the breach, the way the mission continued. He cited Incident Report 10347, noting my composure, my command, and my precision under pressure. His tone gave nothing extra, which made it stronger. Major Mercer protected protocol, secured continuity, and exemplified discipline. Applause started tentative, then grew. I stepped forward, saluted, received the folder. 2 flashes sparked and died. Silence returned. It was the kind of silence that carried weight, the kind I had learned to inhabit rather than fear. Outlasting noise had become my language. Later, in the side corridor, Daniel leaned against a wall. His uniform was neat, his eyes tired. I didn't think you'd ever outrank me. But you did, he murmured. I didn't need to outrank you, I answered. I needed to respect the room. My voice held no edge, only truth. Our father approached, cap tucked under his arm. He paused, studying me in a way he never had at the dinner table, then gave a short nod. Carry on, Major. A sailor's benediction stripped of drama. My mother stood beside him, purse tight in her hands, saying nothing. Back inside, Rohr returned to the microphone. In critical spaces, power isn't volume. It's discipline under pressure. Major Mercer exemplified that. He let the words hang. Chairs shifted as the entire hall rose, not with cheers, but with the scrape of shoes and the rustle of cloth. The silence bent the room into alignment more binding than noise ever could. That night my quarters were still. I pulled open the drawer where I kept fragments of a younger self. The old letter, creased and forgotten, slid free. I framed it quietly, setting it on the shelf without taking a photo, without sending it to anyone. For years I had begged them to see me. Tonight I understood. For years I chased their recognition. Turns out silence had already given me mine. I carried that silence for years, believing it meant weakness until the day it became my armor and my verdict. If you've walked through life unseen, you know how sharp that loneliness feels. I ask you, share your thoughts with me. Did my silence speak louder than any outburst could leave me your words? Because every comment is another voice standing with me. And remember this, you don't need to shout to prove yourself. Discipline, patience, and respect for the moment will outlast noise. Trust your quiet strength. It may be the very thing that writes your justice.